About 4 to 5 months ago, I was having pain in my hip and went to see the doc, and he said, let's take an x-ray, find out what's going on. Long story short, it turned out that my hip was completely degenerated.
In April of 2010, my mother found my sister unresponsive at her home.
In an 11-month period between 2005 and 2006, 3 different members of my family were infected by healthcare-associated infections in 3 different hospitals in 3 different states.
Fortunately, the surgeon was extremely helpful. Not only did it make me feel better, but he calmed my wife's fears as well. We received a book from the surgeon telling us how this was going to be done, what to expect. He answered every single question that we had.
So through the diagnostic testing and everything, they decided that she needed to have open heart surgery. And my sister was high risk from the beginning because she was a type 2 diabetic. She was on dialysis, so she had end-stage renal disease. And so rolling through the door, her caregivers would have known and should have known that she was a high risk for a lot of what in the hospital environment are considered never events.
And at the end of that 11-month period, our son Joshua, who was 27 years old, wound up dying from a gram-negative infection that he caught from his care.
Then we went to the hospital. They gave us another book, a huge amount of reading material. And what it did was it allayed a lot of fears, a lot of anxieties. It let us relax a bit so that when the surgery was actually to be done, we weren't apprehensive about what was going to come after.
The doctor explained my sister's options to her and said, you know, you can go home, enjoy the time that you have. It wouldn't be a question of if, but when. But you could go home and you could be with your children, you could be with your grandchildren, or we can do open heart surgery and try to buy you additional time. And my sister's decision was, and I remember it vividly, she said, I want to live. And if you're 60 years old, I mean, that's the decision that you would make. You want to live because you want to be there for your children and you want to be there for your grandchildren. And they were her life. She loved them.
What happened to Josh was unusual for us because we'd never heard of healthcare-associated infections. What they told us had happened was that this gram-negative bacteria got into his cerebrospinal fluid and became so virulent that it pushed part of his brain into his spinal column, effectively making him a permanent ventilator-dependent quadriplegic.
All of that information up front, because not only the surgeon but the hospital were thinking in terms of patient support, information, including the family in the process, it just made it so much easier.
She never came out of the surgical intensive care unit. She never came off the ventilator. I think there were folks that had a lot of opportunities along the way to care for my sister, to see her as a person that is high risk for all of these things. How do we get her nutrition up? How do we make sure we turn her? Mama would tell them she can't sit all day like this. They ignored what the family's telling you. Listen to what the family's telling you.
About a week after Joshua died, when my husband was in a very bad place, he would sit in a room all day long and basically look down at the ground, look down at his hands. He didn't speak. I got on the internet and I found out that the same thing had been happening over and over again, and it wasn't uncommon. These infections occur all over the country, all over the world, at a ridiculously unnecessary rate.
I don't feel they cared. I really don't feel that they cared about her And I wanted them to see her. I wanted them to